Hello, my beautiful Libras. If your soul brought you here, it's not by accident. It's a divine appointment. In the next few moments, you're going to hear exactly what your higher self has been waiting for. This isn't just another astrology video. This is your sign. This is your moment. So let me ask you something straight from the heart. Have you been feeling the need to explain less, and feel more? To stop trying to balance what others expect, and finally honor your own peace? Because if so, this reading was meant for you. Welcome to Zodiac Whisper Tarot, where we don't just read the stars, we listen to what your soul is whispering through them. And today, Libra, something powerful is shifting. The energy you're stepping into is quiet, but undeniable. Sacred, but fierce. You've always carried a deep desire for harmony, to make peace, to keep things beautiful, to understand and be understood. But let's be honest, how many times have you swallowed your own truth just to keep someone else comfortable? How often have you chosen silence, not out of wisdom, but out of fear of shaking the balance? Well, the cosmos has watched every silent sacrifice. And now, it's calling you not to fix, but to free yourself. You're not here to make others comfortable anymore. You're here to make yourself whole. And the most breathtaking part? You don't have to explain that to anyone. The version of you that's rising now doesn't need validation. Doesn't need permission. You're stepping into your silent power, and believe me, Libra, that kind of presence echoes. If you've been seeing repeating numbers, like 222, 444, or even 1111, comment them below. Those are your angel numbers, and they're not coincidences. They're confirmations. Now before we dive into the deep layers of your May horoscope, the shifts, the cards, the signs, the hidden alignments, let me take a moment to say thank you from the deepest part of my heart. Thank you for showing up, for watching, for being here. Every like, every comment, every subscribe not only supports this channel, it fuels this entire spiritual mission. You are a part of something bigger than you know, a cosmic family that honors your light even when the world doesn't always see it. And trust me, Libra, you will want to stay with me until the very last second of this reading, because what the universe is revealing today, it's nothing short of revelation. So take a breath. Feel your presence. Let your old patterns fall away, just for now. And open yourself to the truth that's been waiting patiently to rise in you all along. You don't need to be understood. You just need to remember who you are. Let's begin. As we continue this journey, you might begin to feel a subtle but undeniable realization rising within you. You've been holding a delicate balance for far too long, and now, your spirit is asking for something deeper, something real. This part of the reading invites you to pause and listen to that quiet voice inside, the one that's been whispering, you don't have to carry it all anymore. Libra, you've always had an extraordinary ability to see both sides, to make space for others, to offer kindness even when it wasn't returned. And while that grace is a gift, it can also become a weight when not offered to yourself. It's not your role to fix every broken piece around you. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is simply let go, and in doing so, finally give yourself the space to be instead of constantly trying to be enough. In astrology, your sign is ruled by Venus, planet of love, harmony, and values. But Venus also teaches us about self-worth. When Venus speaks through you now, she's not asking for more beauty on the outside, she's asking for deeper beauty on the inside. The kind that radiates not because you've earned it from others, but because you've remembered it in yourself. There's a quiet strength in choosing stillness over reaction, calm over conflict, and clarity over confusion. And that's the energy you're being called into. You're not here to convince the world of your value. You're here to recognize that your value was never in question. When you stand in your truth, without needing to prove, defend, or explain, it creates a ripple in the fabric of everything around you. That ripple is not loud, but it is lasting. It is felt in the way people pause when you enter a room, not because you've demanded attention, but because you've mastered your own presence. What's beautiful is that this doesn't come from rebellion or resistance. It comes from release. Release of roles that no longer serve you. Release of people who only loved the version of you that stayed small. Release of the idea that you need to earn rest, peace, or acceptance. These things are not rewards, they are your divine birthright. Even the most grounded spiritual teachings, and yes, even the gentle wisdom many of us carry in our hearts from childhood faith, remind us of one thing: you were not made to shrink to be loved. You were made to rise in grace. Not to overpower others, but to overcome the old you, the one who believed you had to be everything for everyone. That's no longer your task. Your task now is to be true. This is not about silence as withdrawal. It's about silence as power. The kind of silence that comes when you've said all that needed saying, and now, you choose to simply be. It's the silence of someone who has found peace not because everything outside has calmed down, but because they've learned how to stop the storm within. And from that place, you create new alignment, not by force, but by magnetism. You may find that certain relationships shift during this time. You may see people pull away, or you may notice they finally see you clearly. Either way, it's not your job to chase or correct. The clarity you hold now will do all the work for you. When your heart is full of peace, the rest becomes obvious. So if you're feeling the urge to step back, to stop trying so hard, to breathe before reacting, trust that. It means you're growing. It means the universe is aligning you with the life you were always meant to live, one built on quiet strength, not loud survival. And from that space, everything begins to change. Sometimes, the loudest transformation happens in complete silence. Libra, you may have noticed that you're no longer drawn to explaining yourself the way you used to. You're no longer waiting for others to catch up to your truth. And that subtle shift within you, it's not detachment, it's evolution. It's what we call vibrational maturity. When you begin to walk away not because you're angry, but because peace matters more than proving a point, you've entered a new phase of your personal astrology. Venus, your planetary guide, isn't just about love and beauty, it governs your values. And values are never about noise. They're revealed in how we respond when no one is watching. Right now, Venus is moving through an alignment that's asking you to revisit where you've been compromising your emotional well-being just to be the pleasant one, the agreeable one. It's gently pushing you to reclaim your voice, not through loud declarations, but through quiet decisions. And those decisions are powerful. This phase of your growth isn't about being understood, it's about choosing understanding for yourself. It's the choice to offer yourself the same grace you've extended to everyone else. Grace doesn't mean allowing others to overstep your boundaries. Grace means you can say no, walk away, or say nothing at all, and still be full of love, full of alignment. Your worth does not require confirmation. Your silence is not empty, it's intelligent, and it's filled with presence. What's happening inside you now mirrors a higher wisdom that even ancient spiritual texts speak of. When you know who you are, you don't have to shout it. There's a strength in stillness. There's a kind of divine dignity in choosing not to react to what doesn't align with your peace. And that's exactly what you're embodying. You're becoming the kind of person who radiates without forcing, who speaks without words, whose energy walks into the room before you do. You may feel like you're shedding layers that once defined your role in other people's lives. Maybe you were the fixer, the listener, the one who kept everything balanced. But balance, true balance, starts within. And as you reclaim that inner harmony, don't be surprised if people around you begin to feel uncomfortable. Not because you've changed too much, but because you've stopped shrinking. You've stopped trying to hold everything together for everyone else. This is the kind of clarity that's not taught, it's earned. It's the reward for every time you held your tongue instead of lashing out. For every moment you chose peace over pettiness. For every time you sat with discomfort instead of projecting it. That's the quiet work, and the stars are aligning now to honor it. Remember, even the gentlest voice can shift an entire atmosphere if it's rooted in truth. And while you're learning to speak less, you're also learning to listen more, to your own needs, your own intuition, your own desires. This is the rebalancing act your soul has longed for. So if you're noticing that people don't recognize this newer, calmer, stronger version of you, that's okay. You're not here to be recognized by everyone. You're here to be right with yourself. Let those who truly see you now, as you are, not as who you used to be for their convenience. And let the rest fall away, quietly. Not with resentment, but with respect for your own path. There's a quiet shift happening in your life, Libra, one that others may not notice right away, but you can feel it. It's the moment when you no longer look outward to feel grounded, when the validation, the reassurance, even the sense of safety you once sought in others now starts to come from within. And it's not because you've grown colder or distant, it's because you've grown whole. You're no longer reaching for people to complete what was never meant to be filled from outside sources. You're realizing that the home you've been searching for isn't a place or a person, it's the peace you build within yourself. As someone ruled by Venus, your natural inclination is to create beauty, balance, and understanding in your environment. But true harmony isn't about pleasing everyone, it's about aligning with your own truth, even if that means letting go of the roles you once played for others. There comes a time when offering yourself peace becomes more important than maintaining appearances. And that time is now. You're learning that you can still love others without sacrificing yourself in the process. This doesn't mean becoming hard or closed off. It means becoming honest, rooted, and deeply present with who you are. There is a powerful kind of energy that radiates from someone who no longer chases, no longer explains, and no longer compromises their own light just to keep the room comfortable. That energy is what's rising in you now. It's calm. It's centered. And it's magnetic. From an energetic standpoint, when you begin to let go of what no longer nourishes your soul, relationships, expectations, obligations that feel more draining than fulfilling, you make room for what truly belongs to you. The law of attraction isn't just about thinking positively or scripting your desires. It's about becoming the kind of person who naturally draws in what matches their vibration. And nothing raises your vibration more than inner peace. When your nervous system isn't in a constant state of overgiving, over-explaining, or over-fixing, you begin to hear yourself again. Your own wisdom, your own instincts, your own quiet confidence. And in that space, you remember, you never needed to be chosen by anyone else. You just needed to choose yourself. In the teachings many of us grew up with, there's a gentle truth. Peace isn't something you wait to receive. It's something you choose, moment by moment, even in the face of misunderstanding or rejection. Sometimes, the strongest act of faith is stepping back and trusting that your inner stillness will guide you farther than your efforts to please ever could. It's the belief that when you stop chasing alignment from others, you become the alignment itself. So if you found yourself speaking less and listening more, especially to your own thoughts and emotions, that's not withdrawal. That's wisdom. If you've started noticing which spaces feel light and which feel heavy, that's not pickiness, it's discernment. You're becoming the kind of person who doesn't need noise to feel seen, who doesn't need constant validation to feel enough. And with that shift, you stop being the one who needs saving and start being the one who simply saves herself. This transformation is subtle, but sacred. And the more you tend to it, the more it grows. Each time you say no to something that feels wrong, each time you honor your energy by resting or setting boundaries, you are reinforcing a new pattern, one where peace is no longer dependent on who stays or goes, but instead, anchored in who you choose to be for yourself. That, Libra, is true balance. And it's the kind that no one can take from you. There are moments in life when you wake up and realize you've been waiting far too long, for someone to change, for things to feel different, for peace to arrive from somewhere outside yourself. You've held on because you cared, because your heart was sincere, and because you believed love meant holding space, even when it hurt. But Libra, this part of your journey is asking you to gently lay that burden down. Not because your love wasn't real, but because your peace is now more important. When you think back on how much you've tolerated in the name of harmony, you might notice that your patience hasn't always come from strength. It sometimes came from the hope that, if you just waited long enough, things would shift. But what the stars, and life, are revealing to you now is that true harmony cannot be built on imbalance. Waiting endlessly for someone to rise to your level of care is not faith, it's a form of slow self-abandonment. In astrology, Libra is a sign deeply associated with justice. And justice isn't about revenge or being right. It's about alignment. When the tarot shows you cards like the Lovers reversed, the World, and especially the Justice card, it's not a punishment, it's an invitation. An invitation to step into your own power and say, I've done enough. I've given enough. And now I choose myself. That is not selfish. That is sacred. You are not walking away from love, you are walking back to love. Real love. The kind that doesn't ask you to shrink, twist, or exhaust yourself to be accepted. The kind that starts within, not with others. And the truth is, when you've poured from a cup that was never refilled, you eventually reach the point where the most loving thing you can do is put it down and rest. What's beautiful about this release is that it doesn't need to be loud. You don't need to announce your decision to anyone. You don't need to explain why your silence is louder than your words. The people who need to understand it will, eventually. And the ones who never did were never really listening in the first place. There is wisdom in knowing that peace doesn't always come from resolution. Sometimes, it comes from release. Sometimes the chapter doesn't close with a conversation or a goodbye. It closes when you stop giving your energy to something that no longer reflects your worth. And that's okay. It's okay to mourn what never became. It's okay to love someone and still realize that staying is hurting more than helping. That doesn't make you weak. That makes you aware. From the perspective of emotional growth, this moment in your life is not about regret, it's about realignment. It's about becoming so deeply anchored in your own value that you no longer wait for others to confirm what your soul already knows. This is how your waiting becomes your liberation. The door didn't open because someone finally came to find you. It opened because you chose to walk through it. In many teachings, especially those rooted in divine wisdom, there's a simple reminder: peace is not earned by how much you endure, it's found when you finally recognize what's not yours to carry. You've carried enough, Libra. And now, your only job is to release with grace. To let love transform, not just the love you gave others, but the love you're finally ready to give yourself. So if there's something you've been clinging to, an old story, a connection, a hope that's become a weight, maybe this is your moment to let it go. Not with bitterness, but with softness. Not with blame, but with understanding. You've done your part. You've waited long enough. And now, it's time to walk forward, not away from something, but toward the peace that's been waiting for you all along. And maybe now, after everything, you're realizing that forgiveness was never really about them, it's always been about you. Not about excusing what happened or pretending it didn't hurt, but about choosing not to carry the pain any longer. Because pain, when left unattended, quietly becomes armor. And Libra, your heart was never meant to live behind walls. It was meant to feel deeply and then be free. There's something courageous about deciding you don't need an apology to move forward. It takes a special kind of strength to say, "This ends with me," especially when the wound is still tender. But that's the moment when your healing truly begins, not when someone says they're sorry, but when you decide their silence no longer has power over your peace. In astrology, your sign seeks fairness. You naturally long for balance, and part of you might still want the scales to be made even, that justice be served, that the pain be acknowledged, that what was taken be returned. But justice, in its highest form, isn't always about compensation. It's about release. It's when your spirit says, "This isn't mine to hold anymore," and your soul breathes just a little bit lighter. Sometimes the most freeing thing you can do is accept that the closure you needed may never come from the source you expected. And that's okay. Closure doesn't always come in the form of words. Sometimes it's found in the stillness of letting go, in the simple but sacred act of choosing peace over the story that's been replaying in your mind for far too long. It's in that quiet choice that you reclaim your energy. When you forgive, you don't erase your history, you rewrite your relationship to it. You say, "This shaped me, but it no longer defines me." And in doing so, you create space for new light to enter, for softness to return, for clarity to grow. That's the alchemy of grace. Think of the people who hurt you, not to invite pain back in, but to notice how far you've come. You don't feel the same sting you once did. That's not forgetfulness, that's growth. That's your inner resilience building a sanctuary inside you, one that's not shaken by what others did or didn't do. One where your peace is rooted, not rented. What you're stepping into now is a different kind of balance. One that isn't measured by the fairness of others, but by how whole you feel within yourself. There's no spiritual shortcut to this. It's not about pretending to be okay. It's about choosing, day by day, not to let old wounds dictate your present capacity for joy. In the quiet teachings that echo through every path of wisdom, there's a gentle truth, that to forgive is to be free. That to hold on to bitterness is to drink poison and expect healing. And though no one ever said it would be easy, it is possible. The weight you're carrying is not a requirement. It's a decision. And now, you're in a place where you can decide differently. So maybe today is the day you write the letter you'll never send. Or whisper the words that were never spoken. Not to them, but to you. I forgive you. Not because you asked for it. Not because you earned it. But because I am ready to live free. That one choice, whispered in your own voice, might be the beginning of your return to yourself. And that is the most important journey of all. Even after all the lessons, the healing, and the letting go, there comes a moment when you stop needing your growth to be witnessed in order for it to be real. Libra, you've always been the one to keep the peace, to step in as the bridge between extremes, to make things feel safe and balanced for others. But now, you're learning to hold that same sacred space for yourself, and something inside you is starting to shift because of it. You're not seeking applause. You're not waiting for others to validate your efforts. You're simply becoming, and that's more than enough. When you no longer feel the urge to explain, to prove, or to convince, that's not disconnection, it's evolution. It's the moment when your identity no longer needs to be shaped by reaction but by reflection. You are beginning to trust your own inner compass. And that trust becomes the soil in which true confidence grows, not loud, not performative, but rooted and unwavering. Like a tree that doesn't demand attention but still changes everything around it by simply existing. From an astrological perspective, this phase invites you to embody the highest octave of your Venus-ruled essence. Not the kind of beauty that seeks attention, but the kind that emanates from self-respect. Not the kind of harmony that depends on pleasing others, but the kind that begins when you honor what feels right inside your own body, your own heart, your own breath. Numerology beautifully reflects this stage of your journey. The number 6 reminds you to heal emotionally, to return to inner alignment, and to nurture what truly matters. The number 9 gently urges the release of outdated roles and patterns, the ones that taught you love had to be earned, peace had to be negotiated, or worth had to be proven. And the number 17 is your divine signal that after the breaking comes awakening. That the trials weren't setbacks, they were thresholds. And perhaps now, you feel yourself standing at one of those thresholds, not needing to be seen in a particular light, not hoping to be understood in a particular way, but choosing to step forward anyway. Because that's what maturity looks like. It's not perfect. It's not dramatic. It's quiet, intentional, and deeply personal. You're no longer performing balance. You are the balance. The colors that support you during this time, olive green and amber brown, are more than just beautiful. They anchor you. They reflect your journey back to the earth of your being. Olive holds the energy of peace, wisdom, and reconciliation, not with others, but with yourself. Amber brown calls you to stabilize, to stand grounded even when everything else around you is shifting. These shades don't scream. They soothe. You may still encounter people who expect the old version of you to return, the one who kept the waters still even while drowning. But that version of you has gracefully stepped aside. And in its place stands someone who is calm, not because everything is easy, but because they've learned to stop making themselves small just to keep the peace. Let this next chapter be guided not by obligation, but by authenticity. Let your actions be quiet reflections of your truth, not echoes of what others expect from you. You were never meant to spend your life convincing anyone of your worth. You were meant to know it, claim it, and live it, without apology. So if your soul is whispering that it's time to stop performing and start simply being, listen. That's the whisper of freedom. That's the energy of someone who no longer needs to be chosen, because they've already chosen themselves. And now, Libra, take a breath with me. Not the kind of breath you take when you're bracing yourself for the world, but the kind that says, I've finally come home to myself. Because if you've made it to this point in the video, something inside you already knows. You're no longer living to be pleasing, you're living to be honest. To be whole. To be aligned. You've carried the weight of keeping everything balanced for so long. But now, the balance isn't outside you anymore. It lives in your chest, your spine, your quiet decisions. For perhaps the first time, the scales are tipping in your favor because you've chosen yourself. Not out of bitterness. Not out of rebellion. But because your peace has become more sacred than your need to be understood. You don't need everyone to agree with your path. You don't need applause or approval. What you need, what you've always needed, is your own permission. And you have it now. You can take up space, speak less, shine more. You can rest without guilt, set boundaries without fear, and show up for yourself without apology. Isn't that what freedom really looks like? I want you to take a moment and reflect. What's one small thing you're doing today that's an act of self-love? It doesn't have to be dramatic. Maybe you let go of a conversation that drains you. Maybe you stayed off your phone for a while to breathe. Maybe you simply drank water and whispered something kind to yourself. These small choices, they build the world you're stepping into. And I promise you, they matter more than you think. If something in this video spoke to your soul, even just a sentence, I invite you to anchor it in the real world. Drop it in the comments below. Share the practice, the sentence, or even just the energy you're choosing to carry into your next moment. Or simply write this truth: I've returned, as someone who no longer needs to be liked to feel loved. Because when you put that into words, you make it real, not just for yourself, but for everyone reading and remembering that they, too, are enough. Let me take a moment to thank you, not just for watching, but for showing up for your own journey. Your presence here isn't something I take lightly. Every like, every share, every subscription is not just an algorithm, it's a soul connection. And it tells the universe, I'm ready for more. So if this message moved you, even in a quiet way, pass it on. Send it to a fellow Libra, or someone who's learning to reclaim their voice. Because healing spreads when it's shared. Growth deepens when it's witnessed. And your light, Libra, it was never too much. It was always needed. Thank you for walking this path with me. Thank you for choosing truth over performance, inner peace over outer perfection, and self-love over self-sacrifice. You are not alone. You never were. Until we meet again, stay grounded, stay whole, and stay exactly as powerful as you are right now.